The champ, Bola Ray in the house, and his show, The Scoop. What do you got for us tonight, champ?
How are you doing?
Pretty good, thank you.
Fantastic. Once again, my name is Bola Raymond Olugwali, and this is The Scoop. I'd like to thank you for permitting me the opportunity to actually give my perspective on the sport of boxing today and yesteryear. Today's episode is going to be on the standing or mandatory 8 count. Should be abolished. The standing 8 count was taken out of practice in the professional ranks by the Association of Boxing Commissioners, the ABC, in 1998. The mandatory 8 count remains in place in practice to this day. Now, I haven't been able to find the defining line between the mandatory 8 and the 10 count. Which one is the official standard? This is problematic. If somebody can tell me, leave it in the comments below. There's a school of thought that believes that either the mandatory 8 count or the 10 count is doing a huge disservice to the fighters. It's doing a disservice to the fighters because of their safety and should be abolished. I couldn't disagree more. A YouTuber by the name of Ramsey Dewey made a piece claiming that I strongly disagree with. He believes that the mandatory or standing 8 count in boxing needs to be removed for the rules and regulation book because every knockdown is a concussive scenario. And by giving the athlete the opportunity to continue fighting is just adding concussion on top of concussion on top of concussion. He made the claim that MMA is a safer sport than boxing currently because MMA, once an athlete is knocked down to the ground, their opponent is permitted to pounce upon them and knock the athlete and continue giving blows to the athlete that is already concussed, which results in a competent referee stopping the contest within seconds, and the down athlete not enduring more severe concussions, if you could wrap your head around that. So by them getting knocked down, concussed, then continue to get even more concussed, is safer than get knocked down, allow them to get up. Get knocked down, allow them to get up. If they get knocked down again, what have you. So in that same video, he makes a claim that in the event that the athletes were permitted to continue beating a down opponent for an additional 8 seconds, this would cause deaths. And in some which way, shape, or form, he sees this as the equivalent to a standing or mandatory 8 count in purely striking disciplines. That's lost on me. There's a lot to unpack here. Ramsey Dewey is touted to be an MMA coach in Shanghai, and apparently he has professional competition experience in MMA. He did another show where he correlated shorter fights with less fatalities, which was met with some people, as he puts it, who have never stepped foot in the ring before, passing negative judgment against him. That's unfortunate. A former boxing client of mine was a special case where she had been training in San Diego prior to me, and had endured 2 concussive scenarios, really bad concussive scenarios, where one, a coach had her, she's a small lady, 5'4", maybe 115, 120 pounds, sparring with a guy. Now he had been training her longer, so he assumed that she would be better equipped to deal with this guy. The only thing is, and this is something that I scream from the mountaintops, I don't have a problem with people of different genders or people of different sizes sparring with each other. It's just that it has to be done in an incredibly safe scenario, because in the event, or the last resort that someone will rely on is power. So if you're using a smaller woman versus a bigger woman or a bigger man who is less skilled, you have to take into consideration the fact that the person who's less skilled at a fight or flight will resort to power. And if that person's defense is not to grade, that could be problematic, which is exactly what happened with my client. She was knocked out not once, but twice by men. The result from the unnecessary incidents was that she would get headaches if she were to just do a wide variety of activities, which made staying in shape difficult. The medical advice that was given to her was to never voluntarily take shots to the head. I don't know for again, but at least for an extended period of time. Now, something about the advice given to her over and above not taking any more shots to the head really stuck out with me, and that was that she was told not to run, because the act, even though it's mild, shakes the brain, which is being described as a concussion in this video. If that is the case, and I believe that it is to be the case, every blow sustained in a combative art contest is a varying degree of a concussion. But our bodies have mechanisms to deal with and repair the results from these minor and even great concussive scenarios. I think that it is when there's not enough time given to heal and repair between concussions is when the scenario gets problematic. Now, with that being said, the notion that every legitimate knockdown is a result of a concussive blow is dangerously misleading. I've described the scenario to some of my clients as this. Think of a concussion as a bruise. Now, there's a wide variety of what bruises are. There's the bruise when your little sister pinches you, which hurts, but the evidence of what transpired has already dissipated by the time you go to rat her out to your parents. And at the other end of the spectrum, somebody taking a blow to a limb, and then there's internal bleeding, which would leave an area, the affected area, black for weeks. So you can see a concussion is pretty much a bruise on the brain. Granted, it has more lasting repercussions and stuff like that, because the brain is used for things. But I know that concussions are pretty much a staple in our everyday, to varying degrees again. We as a species wouldn't be here if we didn't. The thought that giving an athlete time to recuperate from a flash knockdown is being negligent towards the athlete is completely lost on me. What makes even less sense to me is how anyone can see allowing an athlete to continue enduring blows after the initial concussive blow has been received without any time called to clear the injured athlete's head as being a safer option. The athlete's going to go from a mild concussion, which, truth be told, much like that bruise scenario, could repair itself. And again, this is my hypothesis. It could repair itself over the course of seconds, minutes, whatever the case may be, to greater 1 second later, just because they're allowed to continue to inflict damage to the athlete. This argument completely makes no sense. Ramsey claimed that MMA is far safer than boxing because there has been no deaths in the UFC yet. There has been a number of deaths in boxing over her history, which is unfair and a misleading statement. It is very much true that there's been no deaths in the UFC, at least none that I could find. But the UFC is not mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is mixed martial arts. The UFC happens to be a component within it. There's been 7 deaths in mixed martial arts competitions, unsanctioned competitions, and 9 deaths in unsanctioned competitions in the West alone. So what is he talking about? And to make a comparison between boxing, which has a history since 1890, has thousands of contests since 1890, to compare that to mixed martial arts, which pretty much started in the early 50s. And it started off with like one-off scenarios here and there, is beyond misleading. The UFC pretty much came into fruition in 1993. Holy smokes. And there has been virtually nothing being done in the West prior to the UFC in the way of mixed martial arts. Now, to make the claim that because there's been no deaths in the UFC, but there's been deaths in boxing, come on. Ramsey made a claim that MMA, the scenario plays out that when an athlete is knocked down to the ground, his opponent pounced upon him, delivering repeated blows. At this point, a competent referee stops the contest, which is in some way humane. He then goes on to describe a boxing contest as being a scenario where an athlete gets knocked to the ground and repeatedly allowed to get up to receive another concussion, knocked down, get up, knocked down throughout the fight. This happens even more commonly in MMA. Israel Adesanya had dropped Paulo Costa with a left hook at 1 minute and 11 seconds of the second round. He then jumps him and pounds him until 1 minute, 2 seconds, and the fight gets stopped. For the record, Paulo didn't die. Paulo didn't die. Paulo fought Yoel Romero, and they had a back and forth war where both athletes were knocked to the ground. Then the aggressor jumping upon him, and some which way, shape, or form, the victim was able to escape, get back to his feet, and continue the contest. This again repeated itself several times over the course of the fight. And in it repeating itself several times, of course, over the course of the fight went the distance. There was no deaths. How is this? How is Ramsey Dewey capable of making these statements? Which fights is he watching? This is nonsensical, and that's me being polite. I firmly believe in that the mandatory 8 count is necessary, and that the standing 8 count should be returned back into practice for the professional ranks of boxing. It really does make the sport safer, a great deal safer. One of the first rules of boxing is to protect yourself at all times. In the event that the athlete is not protecting himself, there's a problem. I don't see anything wrong with the referee then going off, stopping the contest, assessing the athlete. There's times when the athlete will say, I don't want to continue. I don't want to continue. He doesn't have to get a concussive blow before the referee stops the contest. It needs to come back. One needs to look no further than the iconic fight between, I've said it again, Larry, the Eastern Assassin Holmes, and Tex Cobbs. And Tex Cobbs was nothing shy of a beast, granite chin, heart the size of some Caribbean islands. Yeah, great. But he was a danger to himself. And the sport sort of indirectly dictates that. Show your heart. Don't give up. These are the things that not just the sports society says. We're taught. Don't give up. Keep fighting on. Yeah. Except when you're just taking abuse. So sometimes the referee has to go off and save the athlete from himself. And I think that in the event that the not the 3 knockdown, but the 3 standing 8 count rule was to be reintroduced into boxing, that fight wouldn't have gone the distance, and it wouldn't have heard the final bell. The sport would have saved Tex Cobb from himself and a whole lot of unnecessary pain. But that's my thing. And, well, that's the scoop. It's your boy, Bola, and that's the scoop. Please, let me hear from you. Leave your comments down below. If you like the episode, smash the like button and please subscribe.
Thanks very much, Ray.
Cheers.
That was awesome. Have you ever been subjected to an incorrect call when it comes to standing 8?
That's a really difficult question because at the end of the day, in the amateurs, the scoring is different, and the sport of boxing in the amateurs is really, at least it was in the day that when I was amateurs, it was really directed towards safety. In the event that a fighter took a solid shot, he doesn't have to be rocked. He doesn't have to be off balance. He doesn't even have to be hurt. But the ref would stop the fight and give him a standing 8 count. Now, in accordance to scoring in the amateurs, it doesn't mean anything. Unlike when you get knocked down in the pros, or well, knocked down now, but I'm asking for the standing 8 count to also for a point to be taken off. In the amateurs, it's nothing. It's point scoring. Every time you get touched, that's a point. So a light punch is a point. A monster punch is the exact same punch on point. So I took shots far before I understood the rules of the game. I fought fights where I took a big shot and I get a standing 8 count. I'm looking at the ref and I'm like, why? So yeah, it happens, but it's for the safety of, well, me, but of the athlete. And in hindsight, I'm all for it.
Safety of boxers being paramount, of course.
Being paramount.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for this, Ray. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And, today being Thursday, yeah, you'll be back with us tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
There you go. I'll see you then.
Thanks very much, Ray.